Here we are mid-2021 and it's time to look at the best video editing laptops that we've seen come out this year. This has been a fantastic year for video editing laptops. I'm really stoked to see the increase in performance, the increase in screen quality and color accuracy, even on the lower end models. And by lower end, I just mean budget friendly models. So we're gonna go from budget friendly all the way up to high end, something like the Razer Blade 14, but we're also gonna be looking at something like the HP Pavilion, which is a fantastic starting point for a 1080p to light 4K video editor. So without further ado, let's dive right in. And what can you expect out of this video? Well, first and foremost, if I'm talking too fast for you, I've got a lot of information to cover. You can head down to the little gear icon in the bottom of this YouTube video, and you can actually click that and either slow me down or speed me up. That's one complaint I received on last year's video. This is my most popular video, and something that people kept saying is, you talk too fast. And I just have a lot of information to cover, so for people who don't want me to talk really slow, I talk a little faster, so you can slow me down if I'm talking too fast. All right, the second thing, like I said, laptops are gonna be in ascending order from budget all the way up to the most expensive. And around midpoint in the video, we're gonna have benchmark test results. So you can see where these laptops stand, the ones that I have reviewed. And I have reviewed most of these laptops. So if you wanna see my full reviews after you're finished watching this video completely through, because this video is gonna give you a ton of insight and education on how to pick the right video editing laptop. This isn't just a lineup list. This is gonna equip you to make a purchasing decision for yourself. So stay through the whole video and then consider going and checking out those dedicated reviews. Now keep in mind, there are affiliate links in the description below if you want to check the live pricing of any of these laptops and also the availability. And if you decide to make a purchase through one of those links, I will get a small commission, but at no extra cost to you. And that's what keeps this channel alive and the helpful content coming your way. So I greatly appreciate it when y'all use those links. It just helps me so much. So thank you so much. Now, if you're considering a laptop that you don't see on my lineup in the slides or this one of these laptops I have in front of me here, what I want you to do is I want you to watch through the video, check out the laptops, and then look at the specs of the laptop you're considering and compare it where in the video I'm talking about that laptop. Is it good for 1080p? Is it good for 4K? And then also I'm going to explain some of the specs at the end of the video. So you can say like, okay, well, he didn't show any of the laptops that my laptop has, the specs. So now I'm going to listen to him talk about the specs, and hopefully that'll give you enough insight to know, okay, that's a good purchasing decision. If you're still confused, feel free to comment below. Either myself or the community will help you make a good purchasing decision. All right, without further ado, let's dive right in. And the first we're going to look at is the entry-level 1080p video editing laptops. Now, these laptops are truly entry-level. Not only are they budget, but they're also, the least in performance. They don't have dedicated GPUs. They have integrated GPUs inside of the CPU. And so you can see that there's a lot of Ryzen 5000 series, a Ryzen 4000 series, and we have some i7 1165G7, which is a great CPU with an integrated GPU, as well as the Apple MacBook Pro M1. And a lot of people get frustrated that I put the M1 here in this 1080p category, but I just think about from a full user experience of the MacBook Pro M1, if you're a serious 4K video editor, not using Final Cut Pro, so people not using Final Cut Pro, but if you're using either DaVinci Resolve or Premiere Pro, you're going to have somewhat of a disappointing experience with the M1, especially if you run multiple cameras and you're running a bunch of 4K and you're running high resolution, use a lot of motion graphics. This laptop will not do you well for 4K. These laptops are great for anybody looking at a 1080p video editing. You have the Asus VivoBook Flip 14, the Lenovo Flex 5, the Acer Swift 3, which is one of my absolute favorite laptops. I've used that for over a year and a half, and it's just a great laptop for some light video editing and things along those lines. So this is a great lineup for 1080p video editing. Moving on to the budget mid-range 1080p to 4K video editing laptops, we have the HP Pavilion gaming laptop, which I have right here in front of me. This is a fantastic laptop for 1080p and somebody getting into 4K video editing. It's got the dedicated GPU. It has the H series Ryzen processor. It packs a big punch. Next up is the Dell Gaming G3. The kind of doppelganger of the Ryzen 5 5600H is the Intel i5 10300H. A great processor. This laptop comes with a dedicated GPU, and it's under $900. Moving on to the Acer Nitro 5, we have, again, the Ryzen 5 5600H with a GTX 1650. Now, note that there's a slightly more powerful GPU in the G3 compared to the HP Pavilion and the Acer Nitro 5. So that might be a benefit for you if you're somebody who wants a little bit more GPU power. Now, leaning over to the Legion 5, that is probably, in my opinion, one of the best bang for buck on this whole list here. It comes with the Ryzen 7 5800H, which is a beast processor found in both the HP Omen and the Legion 7, but it's at just over $1,000. That is a fantastic buy for 4K video editing. Comes with the latest NVIDIA RTX 3050 Ti, which is basically the replacement of the 1650 Ti that you see here in the Dell G3 gaming laptop. And it also comes with 16 gigs of RAM. And 16 gigs of RAM, in my opinion, and we'll talk more about this later in the video, is a really good spot for video editing. I encourage people to get 16 gigs of RAM because video editing software uses a lot of RAM, and we'll explain RAM more later in the video. And then another great laptop, if you want to be really on the go, you want a thin and light laptop, but still pack a punch for video editing, the Acer Swift X. This has a mobile processor, so it's going to be a little slower, but also run a little bit cooler and slightly quieter than something like these H-series processors and these other gaming laptops. But it also comes with the RTX 3050 Ti and 16 gigs of RAM and has 100% sRGB. So this is a fantastic pick. Now, one thing I want to point out with these mid-range budget laptops and these entry-level laptops is that RGB color gamut range is going to be hard to come by at this price point, okay? So that's one thing that you have to consider when you're getting a more entry-level budget-friendly laptop is that's an area that they kind of cut corners. They give you a lower quality screen so they can save money and put more focus on the performance of the laptop. So if you're somebody who's really interested in having some good color gamut range for your video editing, or perhaps you do some photo editing as well, that's where, as you increase the price, you're going to start to see better color gamut range and better performance. Everything's just going to kind of improve overall. All right, moving on, let's jump into the mid-range 4K video editing laptops. We have the Asus TUF Gaming F15. This is a fantastic laptop with the latest i7 11800H. That is a beefy processor. I just did a review of the MSI GP76. And that processor kicked some can. It was really good. Now, it's complemented by the RTX 3050 Ti. You might see a little bit of a bottleneck there because it is a 4 gig VRAM GPU. I like to lean towards something like the RTX 3060. It just packs a little bit more punch. It's what's found in the HP Omen. But I'm not saying that it's not going to be a good buy. It's still going to serve you well. You just might see some drop frames when you're trying to edit, heavy motion graphics and, larger 4K files, maybe with multiple cameras. But you can easily bump it down, let's say in your Premiere Pro, to half or fourth quality playback in the timeline, and you'll improve that smooth playback performance. Next up is the Acer Nitro 5. This is the same laptop we saw on the previous slide, except it bumps up that GPU to a 3050 Ti rather than the 1650 that it had on the more budget-friendly option. Now, this laptop does come up to around $1,300, but that GPU and extra RAM is really going to give you some extra performance. Next up is the Asus ROG Flow X13. This laptop is fantastic for photo editors, video editors, and Photoshop users who really want some power inside of their program because it has the Ryzen 9 5900HS, which is great for Photoshop. But then it also has the RTX 3050 Ti, which will give you some great compliments while video editing. So I really like that laptop. Next, probably my favorite laptop of the year, but it's really fighting it out between these two laptops, the Legion 7 and the HP Omen, is the HP Omen with this Ryzen 7 5800H. The RTX 3060 and 16 gigs of RAM. So fantastic laptop there. Next, one of my favorite laptops as far as 14 inches concerned, this is a thin and light on-the-go laptop for a great price point, is the Asus Zephyrus G14 with the Ryzen 9 5900HS, the RTX 3060, 16 gigs of RAM, 1 terabyte of SSD, and a 100% sRGB. This is just like the perfect happy medium for mid-range laptop as far as price point is concerned. Really packs a punch. Great laptop. All right, moving on to the mid-range up into the more high-end price point. We're kind of leading up that way. We have the Asus ROG Strix G15. This laptop year over year has impressed me. It's got great performance. It's got good build quality. I wouldn't say it's got the best build quality. It is an all-plastic build, but it's got good build quality and great performance. So can't say enough good things about that laptop. Maybe outside of that, I wish it had a little bit of aluminum on it. Next up is the Acer Predator Helios 300, one of the top selling laptops every year on my channel. People love this all aluminum laptop with great performance. Has the latest i7-11800H, the RTX 3060, 16 gigs of RAM. That laptop is really going to pack a punch. Next up is the Gigabyte Aero 15 with the latest i7-11800H. This laptop and the Acer Predator Helios 300 kind of duke it out for this category of like, but the one area that the Gigabyte Aero wins out, it has fantastic color accuracy. So both of these laptops are around the same price point. However, I would lean towards the Acer Predator Helios 300 because I just like kind of the form factor and the build of it, but the color accuracy award definitely goes to the Gigabyte Aero 15. Next is the Razer Blade 15. This laptop has yet to release the latest model, but I included it on the list because when it does come out, I think it's going to be a great pick. It has that i7-11800H. It has either a RTX 3060 or 3070 and 16 gigs of RAM. So that's a great buy, and it's going to be around $1,700 to $1,800 is my estimation. Next up is the older or bigger brother of the G14. That is the Asus ROG Zephyrus G15. This one comes with the Ryzen 9 5900HS and the RTX 3070 graphics. Really, that laptop will pack a big punch. And I think if you're wanting a slightly larger screen than the G14, that's a fantastic pick. Moving up into the Lenovo lineup, there are so many different Lenovo laptops you can pick, so let's unpack it. First and foremost, we have the Lenovo Legion 5, which you saw in the more budget-friendly category. Okay, this laptop is a Ryzen 7 5800H with the RTX 3050 Ti. Then we move up to the Lenovo Legion Slim. Okay, this laptop is very similar to the laptop I have in front of me here, except it has the Max Q version of the RTX 3060, which means it is going to be a slightly thinner laptop with a slightly less powerful GPU. So if you're somebody who wants kind of a thinner on-the-go video editing gaming laptop, that'll be your pick. Now, if you're somebody who wants that little bit more performance, you're going to pay about $300 more, roughly, and you're going to have the full RTX 3060 GPU with that slightly big boost in performance. And by slightly big boost in performance, this laptop really kicks some can. I've done a full review recently, and it's fantastic. From there, you move up to the Legion 5 Pro. Okay, now this laptop is kind of in an odd space. It's going to be a little bit thicker than this laptop. It's going to probably run a little bit cooler because it's got some bigger vents along the back. Again, this is one of those laptops that I've yet to review, but should be getting my hands on soon. And it's also going to have the Ryzen 7 5800H, same processor as the two other laptops we've just talked about, or three other. And it's going to have the bigger GPU. So it's going to have the RTX 3070. So that's the 8 gig card. That's going to be a big punch in performance. It's going to have 16 gigs of RAM and 2 terabytes of SSD. So those are the Legion lineups, and I think they're worth talking through. If it was me personally, I would probably go for the Legion 5 or the Legion 7, depending on my budget. The Legion 7 is going to give you a little bit bigger kick in performance, but is it worth almost $800 more? I don't know. I don't... It's hard to say because you're going to have smoother playback, and you're going to be able to move up maybe into some 6K B-RAW video editing with that Legion 7, whereas the Legion 5 is more, entry level to mid 4K video editing. So you got to kind of figure out what kind of work you're going to be doing. Okay, these are the high-end laptops. These are the ones that pack the biggest punch, have maybe the best color accuracy, and also, solid build quality. Or they're just straight up unique, as you can see with the ZenBook Pro Duo. All right, first and foremost, we have the Asus ROG Strix G15. This is the same laptop we saw a few slides back, except it has the Ryzen 9 5900HX, the RTX 3070, and 16 gigs of RAM with that 1 terabyte SSD. So this laptop is a fantastic bang for a buck. It's going to have killer performance, and it's going to be at the $2,000 price point. Okay, that is more expensive, but for the performance it comes with, it's really unbeatable. Next up, we have the MSI Creator 15 or Creator 16. I'm not quite sure what move they're gonna make. They haven't fully released this model yet, but I'm anticipating its release is gonna be good. It's gonna be really good. Okay, it's gonna have the i7 11800H or the i7 10870H. Like I said, they're kind of mixed reviews right now on this one. So when it comes out, I'll make sure to link it below. We're going to have the RTX 3070, 16 gigs of RAM, and 1 terabyte SSD. I'm anticipating the cost of this laptop anywhere from $2,100 to $2,300. We'll have to find out when it releases. Next is the Asus ZenBook Pro Duo, one of the coolest laptops I've seen in a long time. It's got this touch bar here that's fully interactive with the pen tool. You have a second screen, that's the touch bar. It's not even a touch bar, it's a full second screen, and it's just really handy for video editing. You can have all your panels and all of your things that you're handling down here, your effects, your tools, your timeline, whatever, and then you can have your full display up top. So it's a very cool on-the-go workstation, and it really packs a punch with the i7-10870H and the NVIDIA RTX 3070 with 16 gigs of RAM. So great laptop there. Next, we have the Razer Blade 14. This laptop is really good. It packs a big punch in performance. The only downside and negative to this laptop, and I just finished reviewing it right here, is it's hot. Because of the all aluminum chassis, it holds a lot of heat. And so with that, you're seeing high 90s in the temperatures in video editing for Premiere Pro and DaVinci Resolve. So that'd be the one reason I'd steer you away from this laptop, is just because it has such rough temperatures. And I would kind of push you back towards either the ROG Strix G15 or the Asus Zephyrus G15. Those two laptops would be kind of my alternative that I would kind of lean you towards. But if you really love the build quality and the features on the Razer Blade 14, it's still a great buy. It just gets pretty warm, and that's my concern with it. And what we have last here on our list is the 2021/2022 Apple MacBook Pro M1X 16-inch. This is going to be a killer laptop. We're anticipating the M1X chip, 16 to 32 gigs of RAM, and then 16 to 32 core GPU. Now this is all subjective knowledge right now, okay? Don't quote me on that. That's not maybe is exactly what's going to happen, or it won't happen at all. But I definitely am going to be recommending that MacBook Pro because the anticipated SD card slot, the anticipated HDMI port, the new MagSafe charger, well, not new, the MagSafe charger coming back. I think it's going to be a fantastic buy, and I'm anticipating that's going to be anywhere from $2,200 to $2,600 for the starting price. I know it's going to be more expensive because it's more of the prosumer level computer, but I'm anticipating that's going to be a great laptop, and I'll do a full review as soon as it comes out. All right, now don't go away anywhere. Don't go. What we need to do is jump into the benchmarks, and then we're going to jump into some spec explanations. So first and foremost, we're going to go ahead and look at the export times and see which ones fits your needs, and then I'll jump over to DaVinci Resolve. So if you want to hang on and look at these export times, go ahead and pause the video, but I'm going to move forward to DaVinci Resolve now. Looking at DaVinci Resolve, we have the export times here on a myriad of laptops that I've reviewed over the past few months. If you want to look at these, pause. I'm going to continue on to 4K playback. For 4K playback, you see that most dedicated GPU-equipped laptops are getting 0 drop frames in Premiere Pro. The area where you're seeing laptops start to get drop frames is going to be either in the lower end of like the 1650 or 1650 Ti, as you see with the HP Pavilion here. It has some drop frames. Or you're going to see drop frames in laptops without dedicated GPUs at all. And this is for 4K video editing. If you're going for 1080p, you're going to see very little drop frames from the 1650 and from the laptops without dedicated GPUs. Technology's coming a long way, and we're seeing great performance out of that for 1080p. All right, pause, look at it. Otherwise, we're moving on. Let's jump into these specs for 1080p and 4K video editing. We're going to talk about the processor, the GPU, the RAM, and the storage. First and foremost, let's talk about CPUs. For 1080p, I'm recommending on the Ryzen side, the 4700U, the 5700U, the 5800U, the 4600H, and the 5600H. All right, you can pause it here, but I'm gonna talk through this a little bit. If you're somebody who's on, entry level to mid 1080p video editing, I'd recommend any of the mobile U processors is totally suitable. If you're moving up to more complex 1080p video editing, maybe a couple different camera angles, a lot of motion graphics, I would lean you towards the H series processor, okay? And we're gonna explain H versus U here in just a minute. For the Intel side, you have the i7-10510U, the i7-10710U, the i5-1135G7, the i7-1185G7, and the i7-1165G7. Again, those are for our more light 1080p. And then moving up to more intense workflows, you're going to have the i5-10300H, or now the i5, I think it's 11400H is the latest one coming out here in a couple of months. Now, moving on to 4K, as far as AMD Ryzen is concerned, I'm looking at the 5600H from Ryzen, the 5800H, the 5900HS, and the 5900HX. Now for 4K from Intel, I'm looking at the i5-10300H or the i5-11400H for more entry-level 4K. And then moving up into the more mid-range to advanced 4K video editing, we're looking at the i5-10750H, the 10875H, the 10870H, the i5-11400H, like I said, the 3075H, the 11800H, the 900H, and the 950H. Okay, so that's starting at basic 4K, moving up to advanced 4K. That's what we're looking at. Now, H series versus U series. This is very important. Make sure you're identifying the H when you're making a purchase for 4K. It just, without a doubt, to me, H series processors are the high performance processors equipped with a higher TDP. That means they have a higher heat limit and heat tolerance, as well as a bunch of other things. And if you're here and you're technically super smart watching this video is not necessarily for you. This video is for people who are just trying to get their bearings around, CPUs and GPUs. Okay, so just bear with me for not a super in-depth explanation. I have those videos on my channel if you're interested, and you can go check them out. But basically, you're just going to have more performance. It's going to be able to maintain higher heats for a longer period of time, maintain higher frequencies for a longer period of time. Those H series processors are the go-to and the de facto for 4K video editing. Okay, mobile processors are often seen in business laptops, and whereas H series processors are often seen in gaming laptops and high-performing professional workstations. The mobile processors, like I said, can boost up to similar speeds as their H series counterparts, which is why often you'll see something like the i7-1165G7 winning out in simulated benchmarks for super high clock speeds. It'll be beating out an H series processor because it can peak up to that high. However, it can't maintain those performance and temperatures for long. It starts to drop back down, which is why the H series wins out. It can maintain higher levels for a longer period of time. Plus, H series processors are the processors that come equipped with dedicated GPUs. This is just new talk that we're seeing something like the Swift X with a mobile series processor and a dedicated GPU. That's pretty new. We haven't seen that much in the past. We're going to see how it works for these brands as they start coming out more and more. All right, moving on to the RAM, which is random access memory. Never say RAM memory together. You'll get hated on by the internet. I say RAM memory all the time. It's a filthy habit, and people hate on me for it. It's either RAM or memory. Never RAM memory. Saving you some time there, Spaniard. Just movie quote, never mind. Every time you open an application, it is going to pull away from your RAM, okay? So let's say you have 16 gigs of RAM. You open up web browsing, 2 to 5 gigs of RAM, Premiere Pro, 4 to 8 gigs of RAM, After Effects, 3 to 6 gigs of RAM, okay? Right there, you could already be above your 16 gigs of RAM, okay? So that's why for me, I recommend for pretty smooth 4K playback in Premiere Pro or DaVinci Resolve, I recommend 16 gigs of RAM. It is just a great standard. If you're somebody who wants to kind of up the limit and kind of get a higher ceiling for 4K video editing, I'd go 32. But 16 gigs of RAM is a great entry point. I know 32 gigs of RAM can get expensive, but for me, 8 gigs is fine for 1080p and even some light 4K. But if you want the best experience, you would go with 16 and be good with that. That's my recommendation. All right, moving on to the graphics processing unit. Do I need a GPU for 4K video editing? Without a doubt, you need a GPU for 4K video editing. You're going to have people tell you that I'm crazy, I'm lying in the comment section below. It just is not true. Dedicated GPUs are a must for 4K video editing. It's just what it is. You're processing a ton of information, and the GPU is built to handle the processing of tons and tons of information, and it's able to display it up on your screen. There's just so many benefits to having a dedicated GPU, especially if you're going to be video editing with motion design, okay? What does the GPU do? It helps support the CPU. It also helps run multiple external monitors. So if you're somebody who's running multiple external monitors, you can highly benefit from a GPU. So basically, the CPU has all the information, and it says, wow, that's a lot of graphical computation that's taking place. I'm not built for that. In fact, I'm built to run everything else really well together. So, hey, GPU, I'm going to send you all of this graphical information, and you're going to work on it for me. So what that does is it helps the CPU free up space and run faster and more efficient, and the GPU can run the things that it's good at fast and efficient. Dedicated GPU is very, very important. It should really be called a VPU because I know a lot of people get confused. They're like, well, I'm a graphic designer. Don't I need a graphics processing unit? But it really is more motion graphics. So motion, so it'd be video files and motion graphics from like After Effects or Blender or whatever it might be. That's where a lot of confusion comes in. So to me, it's more of a VPU. SSD versus HDD. I'm gonna just say flat out right off the bat, SSD is the way to go. They're more stable, they will not break as easily, and they have faster read and write speeds. Okay, so this is how I explain the differences. A SSD is just basically a big thumb drive. There's no moving parts, where an HDD has those moving parts. It's a disk that spins, then it has an arm that kind of moves around and read and writes the information with this little eye, okay? So this is how I kind of explain how it works. So basically imagine me having a thesaurus. I don't have a thesaurus in front of me, but if I did, I have a thesaurus and I want to find the word optimism. So I open my thesaurus and I start to flip through and I'm manually looking for the word optimism, right? There, got it. Whatever that means, as in the actual definition. Versus me pulling up my phone and searching optimism definition, boom. And it's just right there. So the reason read and write speeds are often slower on an HDD is because it's having to kind of search for the information on the spinning disk, whereas with the SSD, it just bam, goes and finds the information. That's a very, very elementary explanation. Somebody far more technical, if you want to explain how it actually works in the technical, please do so, but that's just for basic sake, not getting into super deep technicals right now. Okay, next up is color accuracy. Let's talk through this because a lot of people, when they're going from budget up to high end, they're wondering the color gamuts and color gamut ranges and what they should be looking for. Okay, color gamut is the amount of color your screen can produce, okay? Delta E is a certification that clarifies the level of accuracy at which your screen produces that specific range of colors. So color gamut is the range, Delta E is the accuracy of the reproduction within that range. Okay, so you'll see laptops with Delta E less than 2. So the lower the number on your Delta E scale, the more accurate those colors are reproduced on your screen. Okay, now RGB versus CMYK. These are two different color spaces. RGB is screens. Your screens can see red, green, blue. Okay, whereas print, when you have a printed piece of paper, this is a printed 3x5 card with color on it. That is CMYK, cyan, magenta, cyan, magenta, yellow, and then the last one actually stands for black. It's just K. But if you had B, it'd be like, is it blue? No, it's K, it's black. Okay, so those are the two different color spaces, all right? Now let's talk about the different RGB classifications. We have Adobe RGB, we have sRGB, and we have DCI-P3. sRGB is the smallest spectrum. Okay, so as you can see on the example here on the screen, sRGB is the smallest spectrum. So if you have 100% sRGB, you have 100% of the spectrum that it's covering. Adobe RGB covers the largest spectrum and leans towards greens and blues. So it's going to most accurately reproduce those greens and blues. It's going to render out things a little bit more green and blue. Whereas DCI-P3, also a popular but still smaller range than Adobe RGB, leans towards yellows and reds. So those screens are going to have, if you have a stronger DCI-P3 screen, it's going to be a little bit more yellow and red. Now, a lot of screens cover 100% sRGB, 100% Adobe RGB, and 100% DCI-P3, some of the higher end screens. So these screens are going to have, kind of a mix of range, and it just depends on the screen manufacturer and really what it is. And you can buy something like a Data Color Spider X. I'll link that below if you're interested, and you can actually color calibrate your screen to your own preferences. What should you look for in choosing a screen? Well, if you're in the budget category, getting a screen with 100% sRGB is really the best you're going to be able to do. There's not a lot of screens in the budget category that hit the high end of Adobe RGB. But for me personally, if I'm looking for a screen, quality measurement, I'm going to look for a screen that has the highest Adobe RGB color gamut range. That's going to be my goal. So if I can see in the high 80s and even up to 100s, that's a fantastic screen. I'm going to go for that. If I see low Adobe RGB, I might swear that screen off. I might swerve away from that screen a little bit. But this is all relative of your budget and price point. But I wanted to explain the differences so you have all the information that you need here. The best laptops of 2021 for video editing. Links if you're ready to make a purchase. Likes if this video has brought you some value. And subs if you don't want to miss out on the future uploads. Thank you guys so much for hanging in with me on this video. I'll see you in the next one.